Hi guys, welcome to Wakeji's channel. As you can tell, I'm not Wakeji. If you're new here, my name is Nduku and I'll be taking you through the book of Ruth, which has 4 chapters. So I'll be with you for 4 days to give Wakeji a break. And so I'd like us to start off immediately in the book of Ruth, and we'll follow a system where I'll read through the whole chapter and then we'll go through each of the sections where I had key takeaways, and I'll just leave you with something to think about. So I'm not as loud as Wakeji, but I hope that you'll still stay on. If you like what you're hearing, comment below. If you have questions, share them below, and let's get started. So we'll start in the book of Ruth, chapter 1, and so I'll read the chapter. And for this study, I'll be using the New Living Translation, that's the NLT version. So Ruth 1. Elimelech moves his family to Moab. In the days when the judges ruled in Israel, a severe famine came upon the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in the country of Moab, taking his wife and 2 sons with him. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife was Naomi. Their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in the land of Judah, and when they reached Moab, they settled there. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Orpah, and the other a woman named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Mahlon and Chilion died. This left Naomi alone, without her 2 sons or her husband. Then Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had blessed his people in Judah by giving them good crops again. So Naomi and her daughters-in-law got ready to leave Moab to return to their homeland. With their 2 daughters-in-law, she set out from the place where she had been living. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she set out from the place where she had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judah. But on the way, Naomi said to her 2 sons, Verse 8. But on the way, Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with security of another marriage." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. "No," they said, "we want to go with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Why should you go on with me? Can I still give birth to other sons who could grow up to be your husbands? No, my daughters, return to your parents' homes, for I am too old to marry again. And even if it were possible, and I were to get married tonight and bear sons, then what? Would you wait for them to grow up and refuse to marry someone else? No, of course not, my daughters. Things are far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has raised his fist against me." And again they wept together, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung tightly to Naomi. "Look," Naomi said to her, "your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same." But Ruth replied, "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us." When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said nothing more. So the 2 of them continued on their journey. When they came to Bethlehem, the entire town was excited by their arrival. "Is it really Naomi?" the women asked. "Don't call me Naomi," she responded. "Instead, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer, and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me?" So Naomi returned to Moab, accompanied by her daughter-in-law Ruth, the young Moabite woman. They arrived in Bethlehem in late spring, at the beginning of the barley harvest. Okay, that's just given me a whole lot of emotions as we start. And so I see 3 main sections that we could look at here, and we'll start with the first one, which is why is Moab such a big deal? And in this season, it was when the judges were there. There was a famine. So Moab is present day northern Jordan, and it's actually a place that's mountainous, and it's a place where you likely find food when, say, there's less food in an arid place, which is what most of Israel is. And Moab historically is from a son of Lot. So I don't know if you remember the conversation in Genesis where Abraham and Lot split up, and then there was the whole issue at Sodom and Gomorrah, and then Lot was saved, him and his 2 daughters, and they went to live alone. So Moab was actually born of incest. Lot's daughter slept with him while he was drunk, and she gave him a child called Moab, and that's the father of the Moabites. And so they already had like a whole, what's the word I would say? They already had a brand of being children of incest. Then secondly, they worshipped other gods, as did most of the other people that did not worship the God of Israel. And during the time when Moses and the people of Israel were moving from Egypt to Israel, back home, back to the land that God had promised them, these same guys denied them food. And then the king at the time sent a prophet to go and curse the Israelites. And so they have all these things that they've been doing against the people of Israel. And so to find these women being married, it was a huge deal, and that's why it needed to be mentioned, because it was people who had gone through a very different life from what the people of Israel had gone through, and they had also experienced God's sin in a very different way. Yeah. Then when we move forward, you notice that these people, one thing I noted is that Naomi and Orpah and Ruth had a good relationship. We don't hear that often. Well, I don't hear that often in the environment around me. This woman took time to pray for them after her sons had died and they had lived together and they could go back home. She actually blessed them too, and she desired for them to be married. She desired for them to have homes. She desired for them to be safe. Yeah. Because in that time, the context of marriage was a context of safety, of provision, and all those things. And she prayed for them. She said here, this is verse 9. She actually blessed them. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage. And then she kissed them goodbye. She loved them, and they loved her back. That for me stood out because I feel that narrative is lost in this our season, because we find people who that's not their first thought, that when you're going into a marriage that you'd have a relationship with your mother-in-law, and as a mother-in-law that you would want to love and bless your daughters-in-law if you have sons, or the other way, your sons-in-law if you have daughters. So I love that aspect of relationship that comes out from here. We move forward and we see the big exit of Orpah, and for the longest time, I don't know why I thought this. I thought that Orpah rejected Naomi and Ruth didn't. But that's not the case, because Naomi was asking them to leave, and they both didn't want to leave her. It wasn't just a Ruth thing. Orpah also loved her, and Orpah also wanted to stay with her. The difference that I see was that Orpah, as Naomi described, went back to her people and to her gods. So while she was still her daughter-in-law, she was still a daughter of Moab, and she hadn't let go of that identity in as much as she loved Naomi. But we come to the big verse, which is verse 16, which brings that difference. And that is that Ruth let go of her gods of Moab. She actually says, your people will be my people and your God will be my God. She let go of everything she knew from her home, and she let God be the guide for her. That didn't make Orpah any less of a daughter-in-law or any less loving. And And that really struck me, because it's very easy to think that maybe people love others less just because they have a different way of thinking or a different tradition or something like that. And also that the decisions that we make don't necessarily mean rejection. If Orpah probably, and this is me thinking out loud, if she had kept going forward, she might have found God, she might have shifted, or she might not have, and it would have been a place of misery for her. That doesn't make her any less of a daughter-in-law than Ruth. She's still an equal to her. Yeah. And so we go to the last part when they're now getting into Bethlehem, and the women remember them. And these women, we'll see them later because they did speak often. And the thing that struck me is how Naomi picked this relationship, that don't call me Naomi. This is verse 20. Instead, call me Mara. For the Almighty has made life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. She was at a place of complete loss. She had lost everything she knew. She had lost it all, and she didn't even know where to start. But the thing that has struck me, even as we read through this, is that even in the space where she felt like God had stripped her of everything, Ruth saw a God that she could follow. And that's fascinating, that you could be in a space of pain and not understand what this God is doing for you, but there are others around you who still see a good God. So how does that make you feel? Naomi returned to Moab, and they arrived there in the late spring and in the beginning of harvest, which was one of the things that they had been waiting for while they were in Moab. And not that they were in Moab not for a short time, for over a decade. So they had lived a good life together there in a place of bounty, and now they were moving back home. So what do we learn from this chapter? For me, it's that God is beautiful even in the bitter moments. And I'm reminded this name Mara is used again in Exodus 15, where the Israelites have just been delivered from Egypt, and they get to a place where there is a stream of water, but it cannot feed them because it's bitter. They called it Mara. And it was a place where they started grumbling. I feel like since that time, the grumbling has continued through Exodus, through Judges, up to where we are now in the book of Ruth. They just didn't understand why they were in a space, and they didn't have the right water to drink if God was actually delivering them. But then Moses spoke to God, and he reached out to God, and God answered him. And they struck the water, and then the water was good to drink. That, for me, is what I'm hoping for in the story of Naomi. Right now, we are seeing her as bitter, as empty, as lost, not understanding why God has put her in this place. But as we see with the Israelites, God continued to give them their promised land. And so I hope as we go through this chapter that we'll be able to see the promised land. So at the end of this chapter, I see two big things. Naomi lost everything for God. Ruth and Orpah lost everything, but Ruth found God. When you think about your life, what are the things that you feel God is calling you to let go of so that you can follow Him? Take time to think about that. And if you like this message and you'd like to go through the book of Ruth with me, like, subscribe, share, do all those YouTube things, and we'll see you here tomorrow. Thank you.